I know several people that struggle to find a happy relationship, and honestly, when it comes down to it, it's because every time they get into one, they might get one or two things that make the relationship happy, but then they ignore a lot of the rest. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Tyler Warlow, and I make videos on self-improvement topics that I wish someone had taught me when I was younger. And in today's video, I figured I would talk about 5 things that can lead to a happy and successful relationship. These are the things that I have learned over the course of 10 years of being in a relationship with my wife. And honestly, I feel like they are some of the key and most important things that have allowed us to last this long, and I hope to allow us to keep going many years into the future. If you're trying to learn what makes a happier and healthier relationship, let's go ahead and jump into the video. One of the first things that can lead to a happy relationship is learning how to genuinely balance that relationship. A lot of times you'll hear the saying that a relationship is 50-50, and personally, in my opinion, that's just not true. And why I think that is because a lot of times life just throws a lot of stuff at you that keeps you from getting that perfect 50-50 balance that everybody talks about. A lot of times on a day-to-day basis, one partner or the other is going to be going through some really difficult stress or anxiety, or they might just simply be pursuing different goals or activities at the same time. Whatever it is, a lot of times there is more of a give and take on a day-to-day basis in a relationship rather than a perfect 50-50 balance. When it comes to just general household things, what I highly recommend doing it is balancing it based off of what each other does in a day. There should not be a single person doing everything around the household or handling all the things that the household needs to do, such as finances or taking the car to get taken care of. There should be somewhat of an even split there. For example, if someone cooks, maybe the other person washes the dishes. This is really gonna be up to y'all and what you guys prefer to do, but I recommend kind of splitting the activities based on the things that you personally enjoy/dislike. When looking at cooking, for example, I'm someone who really enjoys cooking, but I struggle having to then clean all the dirty dishes after I just spent an hour and a half to 2 hours cooking. So therefore, to keep it somewhat more equal, my wife usually handles washing the dishes after I've done the cooking. But this can really be done in whatever way you want and can apply to so many different circumstances, such as the laundry, handling the car maintenance, handling finances. You guys take the time to discuss and split it up in the ways that you best feel fit your life. And sometimes that's going to involve doing different things on different days. If there's a day that I have to stay late at work, then my wife will usually do the cooking those days, but then of course I will take washing the dishes just to keep it somewhat fair and even. But this balance doesn't just refer to the day-to-day stuff. This also refers to your greater life goals. For example, my wife really wants to pursue a PhD where I don't really feel the need or the desire to go back to school. So I'm really doing my best to support her dream of going back to school and pursuing a PhD by doing the best that I can do in my career. That way, when she does go back to school and we take a pretty big pay cut because of that, I'll still be able to support her on my end by generating some more money for us. And finally, this just applies to the general stress of life that will happen. I remember there was a time in college where honestly I was just overloaded. I was doing a dual major with a minor and I had signed up for way too much work, and it started overloading me and I started getting burnt out and having depressive episodes. But my wife was there for me through all of that. And she's honestly what helped me to push through and finish what I started, because I had her support in telling me that everything was going to be okay. And of course, when things like that came up for her, I was then there to support her through those as well. But it's important to recognize that in those moments where you just feel like you're getting your teeth kicked in by life, that a lot of times one partner is going to have to pick up some of the slack, and that is okay. True balance in the relationship comes through that ebb and flow that will just kind of naturally happen through life. And if you're constantly holding things against each other and trying to say, look at how much more I did than you, then that's just going to lead to resentment and burnout in the relationship over time. So the first thing I recommend you guys do is find that balance point for you and your relationship. Next up is a piece of advice that I got when I was relatively young, and that's going to be to not go to bed angry. Emily and I started dating in high school, so there was a lot of just teenage drama and hormones that comes along with that. I honestly can't really remember where this piece of advice came from, but it's helped us to get through a lot of different conflicts. To me, it's important to not end the night being angry because you're ending your night on a sour note, and then you might have some difficulty sleeping and you wake up pretty much on that same sour note. It's going to be probably the first thing on your mind when you wake up, and a lot of times this just leads to things stewing and getting bigger and bigger until it leads to a much bigger conflict than the situation may have really warranted. Now, sometimes this might involve some late night conversations, but the times that Emily and I have taken to really sit down and talk through the things that might have been bothering us were some of the times that we felt the closest, because we felt like we took the time to listen and to really understand each other rather than just getting caught up and stewing and being angry in this. Now, an important thing that I want to note here is that you aren't always going to be able to not be angry by the time that you go to bed. But the important thing is that you're trying to take the time to communicate and work through whatever it is that's bothering you. This is honestly a huge step in healthy communication, which honestly is going to bring us to the third thing that can lead to a happy and healthy relationship. And that's going to be working on your communication. Learning to have healthy communication in your relationship can impact so many different things. It can impact the conflicts that you have, it can impact your interest in one another, and it can just impact your ability to have a fun and happy relationship. I really think that communication is key when it comes to resolving conflicts or differences in opinion that each of you might have. I have seen way too many relationships where the two partners were pretty much angry at each other, but they wouldn't talk to each other about the situation. Instead, they would just go and complain to their friends or their family and never actually work on the problem together. So this just led to the problem getting bigger and bigger until eventually it ruptured the relationship because they never took the time to actually address and work on that problem. This applies to bigger life things like whether or not you guys want kids, but it can also apply to just how much time are y'all spending together. It really can range so much. So working on your communication is going to help a lot with your conflict management and being able to move through that stuff healthily and have a happy relationship. But it can also lead to y'all having a happier and more fun relationship because you guys are more willing to just talk and listen to each other. One of my favorite things to do is listen to Emily talk about her work days because I love seeing how passionate and excited that she gets talking about the work that she does. Do I really understand any of it? No, she is much smarter than I am, but I like talking to her about it and asking her these different questions because I see how happy it makes her. And honestly, that makes me really happy. And a lot of times, she will do the same thing for me. Talking to each other about your interests and your hobbies can really make the relationship more fun because a lot of times it can give you guys different things to try and do together or just see your partner get excited and support them. And finally, healthy communication is honestly just super important for understanding what your guys' goals are in a relationship together. Where do you see yourself in 3, 5, 10 years? Do you guys want to pursue something like a traditional family where you guys get married and have a few kids? Or do you want your relationship to look like something a little bit more flexible? In either of those options, you guys have to communicate clearly with each other and agree to it, because otherwise in the long term the relationship isn't going to work out. But you guys have to talk to each other and determine what that looks like for you, because otherwise you will not be on the same page and eventually the relationship won't work out, because that will come to a head. Next up is going to be a big one, and one that I've personally had to work on, and that's going to be making sure that you take the time to make time for the relationship. A lot of times, especially if we've been in the relationship for a few years, we get comfortable, we get complacent, we stop making time to be in the relationship. And a lot of times this can happen simply just because of the busyness of life. Like I said, Emily and I have been together pretty much through high school. So we've been together through high school, college, and now into the working world. And I can tell y'all that there were certain times in the relationship where I wasn't really bringing 100% to the relationship. This was at its worst when I was in the middle of college and doing my highest credit hour semesters while living off campus and trying to do all these different clubs. And frankly, I was putting so much time into the college stuff that I really wasn't giving Emily any sort of real attention in our relationship. This of course then led to us having to have a real conversation about what Emily needed from the relationship, and that I honestly wasn't giving it to her at the time. From that moment forth, I've tried to be much more intentional about making sure that even when I'm getting really busy, that I'm putting time somewhere for us to do stuff. You always think that after XYZ happens, you'll have more time, but I'm here to tell you that's just really not the truth. You have to make time for the things that you want to do. So Emily and I try to make sure that we have a date night pretty much every week. This can be going out to a restaurant, going out to a movie, or just staying in and playing video games together. It's really up to us what we want to do, but the point is that the night is meant to focus on us. Obviously, this isn't a perfect system. Sometimes life does get in the way and throws stuff. But rather than simply canceling those plans, we make sure that we reschedule them for another time. One of the things that we have done when trying to foster our relationship is finding hobbies that we can do together, because it's just a lot more fun when you guys can work on something and grow at the same time. And my final point here that I'll make when it comes to making time for your relationship is I really recommend maybe having some dedicated time where you guys just aren't on your phones at all. Honestly, that was something that Emily and I have noticed several times in our relationships, especially when we're feeling particularly tired, is that we'll just get on our phones and not really talk to each other at all, which then kind of leads to that lull in the relationship again. We now use our date nights or any time that we go out to a restaurant as a phone-free time so we can just focus on each other. And finally, I might get some flack for this one, but a thing that I personally think leads to happy relationships is having a level of independence from each other. If you are not able to be separate from one another and go about your daily life or see your separate friends, then that's called codependence. I'm obviously oversimplifying here, but you can get into some really unhealthy dynamics if you aren't able to function independently of one another. I think this applies in many different aspects. Like, I think it's important that maybe you have different jobs from one another, that you maybe have a few different hobbies that you can do independently, and also even having some friends that aren't mutual between one another, because sometimes you need to be able to talk to friends about things that are going on with you in your relationship, but you don't necessarily want that to go back to your relationship for whatever reason. I, of course, really enjoy spending time with my wife, but it's equally important that you are spending time with other people and building a support group outside of your personal relationship. Because if anything does happen in that relationship, you need to be able to have a happy and healthy support group and life to fall back on, rather than just falling apart. I truthfully believe that some of the happiest couples out there are those that really enjoy spending their time together, but are also able to still have a good time when they go out alone with friends or family, or even just to do their own thing every once in a while. But to wrap this all up, I do just want to say that these are the things that have worked for me in my relationship. Every relationship is different, so take the time to work with you and your partner to determine what works best for y'all. Sometimes this takes a little bit of time and some experimentation, but I promise it is worth it, and it can lead to a really happy and healthy relationship in the long term. But if you guys feel like you learned something new today, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to join me along in this self-improvement journey. If you're interested in more videos like this one where I talk about relationships, be sure to check out this video where I talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that people make in their relationships. If you're more interested in my most recent stuff, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is Tyler Warlow, signing off.